Okay, I'm not hungry, but I figured I would eat something recovery, so this and this. I'm gonna toast this. Oh my gosh, it's not working. Okay, I'm outside. I don't know how to come at this problem or combat all of the negative thoughts that occur. I mean, I know there's prayer, and it's weird because there's this one book that I read in one of my classes called You Are What You Love by James K. Smith, and it's basically like talking about how habits form your life. The habits that you choose are going to construct these liturgies in your life that you follow. I'm realizing, like, yeah, my habits do form who I am, but also I have this issue with being incredibly hard on myself, incredibly legalistic, and just doing things because I'm like, well, I just gotta do it. I just gotta pick myself up by the bootstraps and do it. And then I get really, really extreme and just keep adding things, keep doing things. I'm like, well, I probably need to address something else. It's probably not just the habits. There's probably something else here. And I was trying to explain to that to him in class. Like, there's something else here. Children have, like, might be born with fetal alcohol syndrome. That child has so many more problems just born into life, and it's like, yes, they can slowly implement those habits. It's possible. I guess I'm wondering what the best way to do this is, and I think everyone's way is different. I don't know if I'm doing the journey correctly. I don't know if I'm saying things that are like triggering or whatever, and I guess I probably shouldn't frame this as a recovery video. I don't know, but people's recovery videos are so like aesthetic and pretty and nice, and I'm like, I don't think that I would be a healthy person to observe. But I guess none of us are healthy. We can't Instagram reel our lives, and that's what I don't want to do. I don't want to just be like perfect. And I mean, what I ate for breakfast this morning, was that perfect? Was that good? Did I have all the things? No, but at least I'm taking a step forward. And I have so much inner baggage and trauma that propelled me towards these habits. Maybe my process can help someone be pointed towards their healing, if that makes sense. I start treatment today, and I'm excited, but I'm also really nervous. And I know that when I look back on this, I'll be able to be like, oh wow, I was making so much growth, and I was making a lot of progress. Last night, I was doing work on stuff for my Theology of Christian Worship class. I was so anxious, so self-critical, and was just like, you know what? I need to step out of this scholarly lens right now. This is not helping me, because I can see it just opening up into this web. And that's the thing about being in academia, is that everything is so deep, and you realize there's so many different perspectives, and everyone has an opinion on everything. Even when it comes to like nutrition and food, it's like, I'm scared of the program in some ways, because I'm like, they're gonna say these things like, this is good for you, or like, this is whatever, but I'm like, is this backed up by science? Like, is this backed up by medicine? And what is science, right? Like, what does science even mean? But I'm like, has this stood the test of time? does this work? And I know the reason that they do it and the reason that they focus on nutrition in a way where it's like less stress is because they're dealing with people with literal eating disorders. There are certain things that are, I'll use the word, triggering, and sometimes it can be like everything is triggering. Everything everybody does makes me feel bad about myself. And that's where the disorder comes in. Because whenever anybody talks about dieting or whenever anybody talks about weight or anything, it's just like, it's so easy for me to take it to heart. And that comes for other things too, like academics. I can be like my professor will say something might be directed to someone else in the course who isn't doing very well, and I'll put it on me like, you're not doing well. You need to do better. When the serpent came into the garden and he was talking to Eve, and he was like, if you eat this, you will be like God. You will be elevated to the standard. A lot of us have that where we want people to be obsessed with us. And one thing to recognize is that when people are obsessed with you, which I have had, it doesn't feel good at all. Actually, it sucks because you feel like you're being held up as this savior, and you have to hold to this standard where you're like, oh yes, I am God. No, you don't actually think that in your head. You're living it out though. We want to be elevated to that status, but at the same time, no, we don't. No one wants to be God. And I think I put that on myself sometimes to save the world. I don't know if anyone else does that. We're not responsible for solving everything, and that is God's responsibility. But then that will lead you to like, well, if that's God's responsibility, why isn't he doing anything? And I think that's kind of like a self-defeating question, because it's like, well, if you're living within that perspective of pessimism, you're not going to be able to see the ways that God is working. You're going to be so clouded by everything else. You can be clouded by, there's wounded people everywhere, and you're going to see it. And sometimes it's really easy for all of the pain in the world to cover up the beauty. I mean, that bird is singing right now. And that bird was born into this world just to sing, and just to eat food, and just to live, and just to be beautiful. And isn't that beautiful? Isn't that a reason to be alive? I would just say that it's a lot about perspective, but also if there's been a poison that's been embedded in you, like trauma, it can be easy to like force yourself into positivity, like everything's fine, I'm gonna be okay. And actually, that's not healthy at all, because then you're actually pushing down the anxiety, and then it will come out in different ways. So it doesn't have to overwhelm you. I mean, it is overwhelming, but you don't have to be consumed by your feelings, by things other people say to you. I know God is real, and just knowing that he is real and that he created me is enough for me to keep going in life. And I say that now and might be like having a mental breakdown like 20 minutes later, being like, why God? But I think deep down inside of me, I know that to be true, even in the darkness. Sometimes it's a good idea to just journal out, understand what you're going through, and sometimes it's like, nope, this is not the time for this. I'm too dysregulated. It's time to just watch some YouTube and comfort myself. And I would say, like, there's a lot of things in life that people tell us, like, oh, don't go on social media, or don't watch YouTube, or read a book instead. And I love reading books, but like right now, I have been watching YouTube. I've been watching Chardoodle. I feel this like defensive guilt of like wanting to be very intellectual and wanting to be validated by the fact that I'm smart, because that has, I think, been a source of my, like, has fed into this, is wanting to be perfect and wanting to be the best and being very competitive. I wouldn't suggest, like, if it's comforting for you to go yell at your family. Because I mean, is that a real source of comfort though? Is that actually gonna calm you down in the long run? No. I mean, and some people will, like, classic example, will use like pornography or something to calm down. Is that somehow like connected to your trauma? Does that make sense? Like sometimes pornography can be so connected to why we're being traumatized. I believe that like there are things we shouldn't do, and that our heart knows when something is wrong. And like I'll watch a calm YouTube video from Chardoodle, I keep talking about her, and it calms me down. And sometimes that's what we need, is we just need to be calmed down. There's things that we need to do to like not go back to our addiction. Yeah, so those are some thoughts. I know I feel better after saying those, and